something changing, transforming, disappearing. All of a sudden they were there, all of a sudden they're not. And so this definitely is awakening energy. This is the week of March 31st and the following 7 days. So, yes, the first week of April. So there it is, March 31st, the following 7 days. You see, we got Pluto. What would an astrology reading without Pluto be? We've got Neptune, we've got Venus, we've got Mercury. They're in red for a reason because they're both retrograding already. Mars is always an issue because it's known as a trigger planet, and you just never know what the hell's going to happen when Mars is around. Mars is actually kind of big this week. Venus is my money, my values. It's my desire. It's how I receive. So we think of my money in the bank. We think of my material, tangible values, something I'm holding, and I say, hey, but this is mine, damn it. Mine. Don't drink out of that. That's mine. But it's Taurus. So here I am drinking some water, something of the earth. Taurus, something of the earth. Venus rules Taurus. Venus also rules Libra energy. So we think of partnerships and also business partnerships. So there's that when it comes to the business partnerships and the Venus that rules Taurus, right? That same Venus, really some similar things, and they kind of irritate each other. Just in general, it's good to know. Taurus energy is a quincunx to Libran energy. Taurus is fixed. So it's kind of like, yeah, this is mine. It's not real great at the we thing. Not unless it chooses to be like, well, this is mine, but here, would you like some? But you go ahead and find a Taurus, and if that's Taurus's item sitting there, and you go ahead and you just take some without asking, or you borrow some and don't return it, earth and animals and plants and the planet when we think of Taurus and earthy stuff. So, of course, we're thinking farmers, we're thinking my garden out back, we're thinking food in general, whether it's cultivating, whether it's bringing it in the house and chopping it up and cooking it up. It's food, man. It's the smell of the food when it's cooking. It's the taste of the food when you eat it. It's the eye appeal when you see it. Like, that's all Taurus stuff. Now, this is a big part of the story of this week. It's not the only story, but it's a big part of it because it's Pisces energy. And with all this stuff in Pisces, well, it's what's in the news. It's what we're hearing about. You see Mercury sitting right there, right? Mercury goes direct on April 7th. Bam. This is a big deal, and it's also intimately connected with Venus because, as you see, they are basically hand in hand in Pisces energy. So this is information and news. It's coming down from public figures, politicians, institutional energy, your government. Now, for all those in the other side of the world, across the pond, I don't follow your government. I don't follow what's going on over there closely enough. This, of course, applies. This is global. All I can speak to is what's been going on here, which I think everybody is aware of. The United States shutting down support globally. So that takes down federal workers globally, offices globally. For people who don't know, right? U.S. aid all over the world, U.S. food all over the world distributed, which farmers in the U.S. I have Sirius drawn in on the chart. Sirius is 13 degrees, so it's at an Aries degree, which is a new beginning or a starting on a taking action. Sirius is the food and the grain. And if it's Pisces energy, which it is, that's the global stuff, right? That's the planet. Well, the U.S. government with Mercury and Venus connecting like this, and then both of them actually will pass the south, will pass up the north node, which is this is the path forward. This is about the future and the plans and this is what we're going to be doing. So our values and our money and probably food. So a lot of the things that have been implemented, all the major cuts, lots of major cuts in the US, like departments, governmental departments, gone. A lot of these have been hurting usually the red states, to be quite honest. Not that the blue states aren't affected, but a lot of the red states were quite dependent, very dependent on some of these government programs, especially education and different universities and colleges getting grants and funding for research and a lot of jobs, a buttload of jobs. So this looks like, because Venus and Mercury will be touching the North Node and both of them touching Saturn, this Mercury from 29 goes back to 24, which is rules and regulations. So news and information about that. And so because of this retrograde, it's as though they went ahead, started making these cuts because this is ideally what they wanted, Pisces. But when it looks on paper one way, and then when you start to live it and experience it and then get feedback from constituents, well, there might be a little bit of, we got to walk that back, or we got to kind of like change our tune. So likely we'll be hearing information about, I have no idea what they're going to say because, well, it's all coming from here now. And yeah, God only knows. It's all really purely chaotic, really, even though, anyway, it's super chaotic. So I'm hopeful that what we'll be hearing is possibly some of those programs either hiring back, which I think I'm already hearing about certain departments that still exist, but that were cut down to minuscule size, like, I don't know, the Department of Energy that handles all the nuclear power, meaning nuclear weapons as well. That's all under the Department of Energy, and hiring people back. Neptune at 0. Neptune's not a fast mover. It stays here all week. What does it mean with having the Neptune in the Aries energy? Well, even now in the month of February, there is a talk. There's been peace talks. And it's been strange because when the peace talks began, it was the United States talking to Russia, and it didn't include Ukraine's conversation or their part of, their representation. Ukraine wasn't at the table, but yet it was a peace talk that the United States were going to orchestrate with Russia and Ukraine and not include Ukraine. So some very strange power grabbing moments is the reality. Power grabbing moments. Remember the backstory? Pluto's still at 3. It's all about business. It's all about, well, we might be able to secure your safety and peace if, whether we get a chunk of land or whether we get claim on certain resources, who knows? But it's a backroom deal from, well, I'm just going to say that it's Pluto worried about business and commerce and wheeling and dealing. Okay. And likely the wheeling and dealing, a part of it is the tech, supplies that can supply tech, those ingredients. So now that Neptune is here, we are still in some sort of negotiations because Mercury and Venus have to talk, and then the North Node, and then Saturn. It won't be until everybody clears and goes direct past Saturn and the North Node and gets back into Aries, right? And passes Neptune. Because think about this, they're going to both pass over Neptune and Aries. So yeah, other than a structure and ordering of troops and physical bodies, this is also values and money, Venus. And Neptune can make stuff look fuzzy. Even right now in February when I'm recording this, did you know that this new administration says that they need to take a physical inventory of Fort Knox? Yeah, Fort Knox in Kentucky. They need to go and count all the gold, all the bars of gold. They need to make sure that it's there because they're thinking, wow, if that gold's really not there, that could send the economy into a tailspin. And I'm thinking, wow, so okay. And then all of a sudden I hear, well, Elon Musk is going to count the United States country's physical gold. And now some of people might be like, well, okay, so what's the big deal? The dude's a trillionaire. Like he really wants some extra bars of gold. Oh, okay. Okay. Something changing, transforming, disappearing. All of a sudden they were there, all of a sudden they're not. And that is Neptune energy. Bodies can disappear, right? Troops can disappear because it's Neptune and Aries. The troops that are on the ground can be there for humanitarian reasons. And that might be a little bit of a stretch under the Neptune because Neptune would be more about spiritual, religion. So we think of religious groups who arm themselves, right? Religious groups that arm themselves. We have them in America, we have them all over the world. And that's can also be one of the ways of looking at Neptune in Aries. Okay. Now, I will add here that having Neptune in Aries, if you thought you were tired before with Neptune in Pisces, Neptune in Aries, well, it's probably going to change the way our physical body is because this is Mars energy and Neptune and Aries to get our Neptune. Yeah, Mars and Aries and Neptune, that combination, it can be a little bit more on the I'm just going to sit back, chill, and watch type of energy. It can definitely be more spiritual. It can be spiritual action. It can have a lot to do with, like, I think of the Asian beliefs, some of the Asian martial arts even. So, they're founded in, like, Buddhism and stuff because it's more holistic. It's more about my whole body, but it's angled towards a spiritual expression. You follow? It's more about mindfulness and more about keeping in tune with yourself, the earth, and understanding that when you are aware of who you are and your capacity and kind to yourself, you become that as a human being, which means you then treat others with that same understanding and compassion. So compassionate actions, actions that show we have some understanding, faith, that's Neptune energy in action. In action. There can be a lot of other examples. Put them in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys come up with. You usually come up with some really good ones. Different things that I just haven't thought of or haven't popped in for whatever reason. Now, this week, Mars is a factor. We start off at 23 and we get to about 28 degrees by the end of the week, but it'll be conjunct, right? The Pandora's box. And remember, Cancer energy, this is cardinal energy. And cardinal energy squares cardinal energy. So Mars squares whatever's in Aries. It also squares whatever's in Capricorn. Whatever's in Libra. All right. So we pop over to Libra and we see that we have the Black Moon Lilith at 18 degrees and she's in a retrograde. So this is the partnership energy. And because Mars is at 23 going forward, we're all clear. Black Moon and Mars, not an issue. Mars is in a trine relationship with all the Pisces energy. And at the beginning of this week and for this entire week, Mars will be trining Saturn. Saturn is work and duty and responsibilities. This is government goals. This is institutional energy, public figures and politicians. Mars is trining. So actions, we're going to see on a large scale actions being taken. Now, These actions will be about the new order, the new structure, the new regime, because it's Mars. And we have Neptune in Aries. Remember, Mars rules Aries. So Mars is part of what Neptune is doing. Okay. I know a lot of people are talking about money and getting payouts and getting a government subsidy or whatever they've been talking about and calling it. That can be a possibility because there's so much in Neptune, and normally it's very supportive when that happens. I do want to add that there was a string attached, or there is a string attached at the time of this recording. There is a talk of a $5,000 payout to people, to tax paying individuals. That's a very important piece right there. Tax paying individuals. So what that means is the people who are working, who are struggling to make ends meet and who pay taxes, they're going to get a $5,000 payout. Now, again, this is just at this time of recording, right? It's just in the talk. There's no signatures on any checks yet. But what that also means is people who aren't paying taxes, like people who don't make there's a certain minimum of money, right? I think what is it, $25,000 or something per year. You won't be getting jack. You are not getting a payout. So just kind of keep that in mind. It was the bill, or the proposal was written in a way so that it wouldn't increase inflation, because inflation absolutely will be headed up, right? With all the taxation and the tariffs, which again, the story's not over on that yet. The story, Venus and Mercury have to get back into Aries uh, before we know what's official. You follow? Because there's a lot of talk. But for this week, in general, Mars trining Saturn and actions being taken. So there could be the paycheck thing coming through. Venus, right? North node, seeing the man in charge, Venus, and Mars. The actions are going to be there. We're taking actions with it. The other part of the Mars energy is at 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. That means Mars, of course, talks to Venus. Mars talks to Mercury. Yeah, that means Mars is going to talk to the North Node. You see? So that's why I think the money and the payout stuff, whether it's going to those who are in need, whether it's going to the wealthy, we will see how that all unfolds. Pluto is about the mind and the thoughts and the thinking. Pluto is about, and I'm saying the mind and the thoughts and the thinking because it's at 3 degrees. So don't get me mistaken here, because I kind of said that in a weird way. Pluto is about change on a very deep level, at a root level, right? But it's at the mind degree. Thinking, talking, communication, and it's in, the oligarch. I was saying authoritarians. It is authoritarians, but we have Pluto here, people who are a little bit rebellious, who are like, the rules don't apply to me. But it's Pluto in Aquarius. These are the power people, groups of power people. And now you got your oligarchs, right? Yeah, the groups of the power people. So they're thinking about the business and the commerce. They're thinking about trade. They're thinking about the stock market and their corporations and the CEOs, and they're thinking about their money and values. The Pluto and the people who will have the last say are these business people, are the very, very wealthy, who will come down and say, wait a minute. And so this can also be what Venus is doing, because she's about the money and the conversations and the rules and the order and the structure. Venus touching in with Saturn, because Saturn is the long-term material financial security. You see, this Neptune at 0 degrees in Aries is in a trine, And this Neptune doesn't move because it's so slow, but it's in a strong trine with Juno energy. So we've got Juno partnerships. And whenever we see Juno in Saggy, what planet do we think? We always got to think of Jupiter. So the Supreme Court will be hearing rulings, and more than likely, these rulings are going to be large, big rulings, and they might have to do with freedoms because it's 1 degrees. We've got lots of different suits going on and lots of different people there's so many people anyway, there's just a lot of court cases. I'll leave it at that because that just starts to make me dizzy at some point. But Neptune also, we think it's a co-ruler of Pisces along with Jupiter, right? Jupiter and Neptune share the Pisces energy. So judgments. And there could be some things that start to get fuzzy and we don't see them anymore, whether they go to prison, whether somebody goes to the hospital because they're sick. Like Neptune and the physical body, it can definitely take the Mars edge off. It can make Mars go to sleep. Mars can become the wounded soldier with Neptune there, where it's like, dude, you better chill. I wanted to show you this before we sign off, and it's Uranus. It can be the group energy, but in general, attached to Taurus, we think, of course, the farmers, but banking will be next. Surely these farmers had loans with banks, right? I mean, it kind of, they kind of go together. That's how business works. You have an extended line of credit with different companies who supply food. You have shipping. There's just a whole slew of things, and shipping is Uranus energy. It is technology, of course. So it can also be this technology, and there might be, people are calling for there to be a big decline or a crash in the stock market and for it to hit tech the worst. We'll see what happens. I know a lot of support for the tech industry left with the new administration, which to me is so bizarre, but either way, that Uranus energy, remember, rules Aquarius, you see? So the shocks and the surprises, the sudden things happening to groups of individuals. I would say farmers are a group, but of course the tech industry, right? And this can be space, this can be like NASA, other than being the surprise and the shocks, can bring information from higher up. Uranus, Aquarius is spoken of as divine energy. So we'll just kind of keep our brains open to that which comes and be smart and test the information, that it's valid. But just remember that learning something new, changing your brain and the way it works, firing the new neural pathways. Once you fire them, then they begin to automatically rewire. And so this definitely is awakening energy with Pluto at 3 degrees of the mind. Okay, so we will pick back up next week on that. And in the meantime, you take care. And remember, I always appreciate your time. Bye-bye.